Hey everybody, welcome to another video here on the 67 Stang channel. So glad to kind of be back. Still don't have a lot to talk about on the Mustang. Got something a little different for you today in this video. I got to go on a once in a lifetime adventure. So we'll get things kicked off here. Okay, so I got to do something pretty phenomenal here that, well, it's the first time I've done this, but not entirely the first time, if that makes any sense. And I know it doesn't. Don't say it, but, you know, for the last, well, since 1988, my dad and his brother have been going up to Alaska in the fall to go fishing. I mean, salmon fishing and halibut fishing, and they've been going to the same lodge. Originally, he started going out with my granddad up there. Then once he passed, they kept going. I had the opportunity for the first time ever to go join them this year. And to say it was a blast is just the understatement of the century. I had such a great time. And I want to share with you some of my experiences and some of what I saw up there. I know it's not Mustang related, but I hope you'll enjoy it. You know, like I said, it was just a phenomenal trip. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me show you how it went and what I saw. It'll be fun. Let's go. So being from Atlanta, of course, I left from Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. Anybody that's been through Atlanta knows how much fun this is, but it really wasn't too bad. I got through security pretty quickly. The lines weren't too long. The biggest issue I had was Delta kept changing the aircraft that was assigned to the flight, so my seat kept getting bounced around. Originally, I was going to be in Comfort Plus on an aisle seat. Somehow I ended up in the middle on the row instead of on the aisle, but I wasn't the only one. There were several first-class passengers that got changed in the flight and ended up being oversold by 10 people, so they had to deal with that. But the good thing was I did get on the airplane, and it was a nonstop flight from Atlanta to Anchorage. I got lucky that the two gentlemen on either side of me were very nice and not very big. One of them happened to be a history buff like me, so we talked about various history, the Civil War, U.S. naval history during World War II. So that kept me pretty well occupied, plus they had a pretty good selection of movies to watch on this 7-hour-ish flight. So got lucky, landed in Anchorage without any problems, and got my bags and headed to my hotel for the evening. So I stayed at the Holiday Inn Express out near the airport. Pretty nice hotel. Staff was very friendly, and then went over once I got checked in to Wendy's, which was right next door, and got some dinner. Was surprised they had sweet tea in Alaska, but they did. So I got that, went back to my room, ate my dinner, set up my laptop, watched some YouTube videos, and made sure my wife knew I made it safely, but then settled in for the evening to get ready to get up in the morning to catch the shuttle at 8:15 that was going to take me to the airport to hop the puddle jumper to the lodge. Now, got up in the morning and things didn't quite go as planned. You can see here it's quite overcast. The ceiling was very low and wasn't really sure if I was going to make it. I was talking back and forth with the airline, air service that was going to take me out to the lodge on whether we were going to be able to leave that night or that day or not. Great views out of my hotel, but not where I wanted to be. So luckily, by about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, things had started to clear up, so a lot later than I had expected. But then we were able to head out and get to the airport and start loading things up. So once I got to the airport, I joined a group. I was the only fisherman in the group. There were several photographers, nature photographers from the UK that were going out to the lodge with me. They like to go take pictures of bears and things, I suppose. But we had 3 different planes going, and this is the one I got on. This is a Beaver. It's a older aircraft that predates World War II as far as when it was designed and first entered production. I don't think this one was that old, but it was a nice big old aircraft, and I was very excited as a history buff to be able to fly in this one. I got selected to be in the co-pilot seat. I don't know if that was because I was a Navy veteran or what, but it was very exciting to be there in this big old radial engine aircraft. And then we taxied over and began our flight. So here we are taxiing to get onto the runway. It's really kind of cool to be there. Here we are lining up, and we just go, right? Full power, no stop, just go. It's very neat to be in this kind of prop-driven aircraft. The first radial engine aircraft I think I've ever flown in, so that was kind of exciting too. Didn't need a whole lot of the runway to get off the ground, and here we are taking off. Now this is very near the Anchorage International Airport. We're coming off. It's kind of over there to the right side of the aircraft. You can see some of it over there, as well as all the float planes. A lot of float planes there. So kind of neat. So here we go. We're off on the way to the lodge. Finally, I was very excited to be going. I said after all of the turmoil of whether I was going to get to fly out that day or not, this was a very big relief to know I was going to make it there. Of course, the ceiling's still not great. There you can see the cloud cover, but it was enough for us to get off because it's all VFR. You have to fly VFR there. So here we go, and off we continue. And it's about an hour and so, hour and a half long flight, I think, there. But some neat scenery, as you can see. So I'm just going to get some photos going and get back to when we land. After seeing all that amazing scenery, it was time to land, and I didn't quite realize we were going to be landing on a beach, which is why I was glad it didn't need a lot of runway in order to take off or land in this big bird. So we come landing in on the beach. You can kind of see one of the other aircraft that had beat us there in front, already down on the beach. Again, I was a little bit nervous. You can see we're drifting. I thought, dang, we're getting awfully close to that water. This doesn't have floats on it, so here we go. But the pilot did a great job. Set us down really fairly smoothly, given the fact that it was an unpaved surface and whatnot. So yeah, it was kind of exciting to land on a beach. Again, another first. Never done that before. So I guess it's no worse than landing on an aircraft carrier. I don't know. Maybe it's easier because it's longer. But anyway, we sat down. You can see they're already unloading the other aircraft. Kind of pan around and look at some things. So we get motor down, come to a stop, and there you can see right there next to the ocean. Kind of neat to see that. There is the plane safe and sound on the ground. Look at those big old tires. That's why they have those. And you just kind of get an idea of what it looked like around. Very pretty, very just amazing to see that there, all that nature, uncut, untouched, and generally speaking, it was just a phenomenal sight. And I was so happy to finally be there, right? Be there at the location for the lodge after all of the issues with the aircraft being changed from Delta, with the, are we going to take off or not? So to actually be there at the lodge. My dad and uncle, who I was flying up to join, had already been there. They'd been there for about a week. So now it was time to actually get to the lodge itself and try to figure out where they were at. So yeah, so let's go take a look at the lodge as we come up to it. So from the beach, we loaded up into some trailers behind some ATVs and got driven up to the lodge. And here is the main lodge building there. There's me in front of it. So this was Silver Salmon Creek Lodge. Great place. I highly recommend it if you're looking for a fun place to go. But we pull around to the back side of the main lodge, which is, here's the back of the main lodge building. You can see it's 2 stories, very nice structure. Much more, I guess it's more nice than I expected.
We all got out of the ATVs and the trailers and went off for orientation. Me and the UK photographers. There, you can see there's a couple of them standing on. Well, quickly learned I didn't need to be part of this group. So I went looking for my dad and uncle, and they found them up on the front deck there. Walked up there and immediately was handed a drink, a nice martini. See me sitting there drinking with my uncle. There is smoking a stogie and drinking. Now, the guys I joined, my dad, my uncle, and his friends, they're called the old timers. And they don't skimp on the alcohol. As you can see here, this was the bar set up. This was not all of it, but good chunk. We had drinks with breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I learned very quickly I could not keep up with these old guys. So, yeah, I didn't even try after the first night. I'm not quite sure how I found my way back to the cabin. But anyway, let's take a look at some of the other buildings around the lodge. So here's some of the guest cabins around the lodge. You can see they're very nice. Some of them are duplex types where you have 2 rooms on either side. Here's the trail that went back to my cabin. We'll take a closer look on how that goes in a little bit, but just kind of give you an idea what it looks like around the lodge. Very nice. They do a good job of not trying to over landscape things and keep it natural. Here is my cabin. I stayed on the left-hand side of it. As you can see, as we go in here, it's very nice. It could accommodate several folks, and this one just had me. Some nice views out there of nature. I was very impressed that it actually had indoor plumbing. That wasn't always the case. When my dad used to go back there in '88 and through I guess the early '90s, they didn't all have indoor plumbing. You had to use outhouses, which are still there and whatnot. So very nice cabins, very happy, excited to get there. So yeah, it's very, very fun at this point. So once I got settled in the cabin, I headed back over to the main lodge building for dinner and some more nightcaps and stumbling home. So that kind of brings us to the end of day 1 at the lodge. The next day, it was time to go out and go fishing. So first, I had to come out of my cabin, and this is showing you the route coming down the path to the main lodge building where I was heading over to get breakfast. I have to say the food at the lodge was phenomenal. Andrew, who was the chef there, did a phenomenal job preparing meals with the rest of the kitchen staff. They did an amazing job. Like I said, the food was amazing. Just couldn't say enough good things about it. So well worth it there. So here's a little path you had to walk through. Now, you may notice on the sides, there's going to be some little indentions here. And those are where the vegetation is pushed down, like right here. You can see that. That's where bears actually will go and lay down and make a little covey or whatever nest for themselves there. So yeah, there are bears here. You got to keep your eye out as you're walking through. Luckily for me, didn't see any in the mornings where I was walking to the lodge, but yeah, very nice walk out, communing with nature as I head over to get breakfast and we get started on the day to go out fishing. So yeah, very, very nice to do that. There you see the lodge in front of me. There's the deck that I was having the martinis on the night before. Some of the lodge staff heading back in there. There is a carved bear. Now that bear is actually carved by a guest that uses, I think his name was Big John. He uses a chainsaw. And there's a lot of his carvings there. So just kind of panning around so you can see the rest of it. So pretty exciting stuff. So I finally made it to the lodge for breakfast. Here is my dad making Bloody Marys. I wasn't joking when I said we drank for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So we started the mornings out with Bloody Marys for the old timers, which included myself, and even sent some up to the staff. My dad and the old timer group, they took very good care of the staff, and we got waited on pretty darn well. They showed their appreciation, so it was very good. I kind of found out that my dad and his whole group were kind of celebrities up there. The Park Service actually recruited them to come do a video, which I will put in the description below, a link from the National Park Service to the video they were part of, talking about what to do and how to behave. And when you're out fishing and dealing with bears, it's kind of neat there. So anyway, we got to eat a good breakfast. I don't remember exactly what I had that morning, but probably some eggs and bacon, some fruit and whatnot, coffee and those kind of things. So anyway, after that, it was time to go out fishing and learn how to do fly fishing specifically. So yeah, so we went out there. Again, had to get on ATVs and head out to what they called the confluence. So anyway, so again, we hopped in and started riding, but we couldn't ride all the way. We had to hoof it some. So here we are walking from where we stopped the ATVs out to the confluence, and this is where the Silver Salmon Creek and Sergeant's Creek come together. Usually a pretty good fishing spot from what I've been told. We will find out later that this year it's not so much a good fishing spot. But me and the old timers are walking it out there to the confluence. You can see it's very marshy ground out here, and it's going to get worse here in a minute. But definitely want to be wearing hip waders, which is what I have on, or chest waders to get through there. Plus, you can be getting into the creek to fish, especially when you're fly fishing. So anyway, like I said, we huffed it out there to the spot that the gang likes to go to, and then we set up camp. So here we go. Anyway, walking this stuff out down these trails. You can see the trails pretty well defined. You can't take ATVs because this is actually national park land. We're on Lake Clark National Park at this point, and they don't allow ATVs out there, at least not from people like us. So you got to walk it, and again, the marshy conditions, it is what it is. This is nature. The tides are very big here, generally speaking, so this is not always dry. Often you'll see in high tides and things that this marshy area is actually underwater. Anyway, again, just roughing it out there to get to our fishing spot and set up our camp. By the way, bears use these trails too. We did not see bears a lot. You'll see later we did see a couple, but it's not unusual to see 5, 6, 7 or more bears in this area. Again, according to what I was told by the old timers. So I guess they would know, having come up here since 1988 that is. But anyway, you can see here there's no bears around, which was probably a good indication to us that there were no real fish to be had here. Bears tend to go where the fish are. That's what they eat as they're getting ready for hibernation. So there we go. Yep, the old timers bring camp chairs to sit up when they're not fishing, to have a place to sit down. Okay, so after we got our camp set up, it was time to start fishing. I have to say the views here at the confluence were absolutely amazing. As you can see here, just gorgeous nature everywhere, with the forest and the mountains, birds flying over. It's just, so phenomenal, so different from anywhere I've ever been. The air was so crisp and clean. It was really just amazing. So now it was actually time to start fishing. So my dad started out by showing me how to cast with a fly rod, and then how to strip the line, which is all part of fishing there. So this was great. I tried my hand at it, did pretty good, got a lot of advice from the other old timers there. They've been doing this for a lot longer than I have, and really appreciated all their help. One thing they did forget, they told me all about the casting and the stripping and how to do that, and I sat there and practiced, but they never told me what to do when a fish actually hits. And this ended up kind of causing me some problems on the last day of fishing. We went to a different location to get some salmon out. So yeah, anyway, it was some problems. We'll talk about that later. But again, I did appreciate all the help. And from there, we spent good bit time out there fishing up until about lunchtime, and then everybody decided it was time to head back to the lodge and get some lunch and just kind of rest, relax, enjoy the scenery, which then followed into cocktail hour later that afternoon before dinner. And while we were doing cocktail hour before dinner, we actually saw some bears come up. So this was the first time getting to see some bears, which was really, really cool and exciting. The bears really loved the marshy meadow area in front of the lodge. They did come up in, got kind of close to us. Didn't get too close though, but really cool to see them. We had a mama bear actually show up too with her 2 cubs that came by. We made sure to stay away from those. Mama bears can get very protective of their cubs, but the cubs were quite cute. As they walked by the lodge, I stayed up on the upper deck. But that really kind of led to the end of day 2 at the lodge, and ready to go and start our next day the following morning. So the next day we decided to go to a slightly different spot to try to get some salmon, having had no luck over at the confluence. So we decided to go to the mouth of the Silver Salmon Creek, right there where it meets Cook Inlet. So we went out there and tried again. Again, some beautiful scenery, but not a whole lot of luck either. And so by lunchtime, we decided enough was enough and went back to the lodge. Now, I decided after lunch to go do some exploring. So I went out and started walking kind of north up the trail towards, there's another river that we'll get to later, the Johnson River, that apparently had some fish. So I went exploring up there and got to see some neat things. So here's kind of the path that I took going up there. One of the first things I encountered was the lodge up the road from the Silver Salmon. The owners of the Silver Salmon recently purchased this lodge too, so they've taken ownership of that. And from there is really just a walk through nature. So I'm going to let y'all enjoy the scenes as we go through and you get to see what I saw. It was pretty phenomenal. So day 4 was going to be halibut fishing day. So we went down after breakfast, and of course, yes, we had Bloody Marys, and got on board Joanne's Song. And this was the boat that we were going to be doing our halibut fishing from. I don't know anything about the boat other than the name. So it was a group of us. There was one group that we went and dropped off at a different location to go. They were going to go salmon fishing at a different river that was down south of the lodge. Once we dropped them off, we went out to go do the halibut fishing. See, the seas weren't too bad. They were a foot to 2 foot swells, so it wasn't horrible. But once we dropped them off, we got settled in and got ready to do our halibut fishing. Now, we found that they were down about 260 to 270 feet. So good bit of line had to go down using 4 to 5 pound weights to keep them on the bottom. For those that don't know, a halibut is very similar to a flounder. So it's a flat bottom dwelling fish. So yeah, we had to go down deep to get it, which you wouldn't think was bad, except halibut are pretty big. They weigh, over, the ones we caught were over 30 pounds. So yeah, reeling in from the depth of 260 to 270 feet was no easy task, especially for me, the newbie, but I did end up catching 3. Well, I hooked 2 and reeled in a third. So the one of the ones I hooked was underweight. It was under 30 pounds, so I opted to throw it back. The other one I hooked was just over 30 pounds. And then the one I reeled in, which was the biggest for the day, was around 34 pounds. So I kept the two there and brought those in. And you can see a picture of me with my big fish here. Very excited. That's the first halibut I've ever caught there. But we had a good time, pretty productive. Caught some other non-good fish too, some sharks and a skate. My uncle Pete caught a skate, which we estimated was close to 100 pounds. Skates like a ray, but so we had a good old time. Spent all day out there, then came back and enjoyed cocktail hour to the fullest, and had a great dinner, and then got ready for the next day's adventures, where we'd go back and try salmon fishing, but at a different location than we tried before. So the next day was day 5 and our last full day there at the lodge for fishing. So we went up to Johnson River to go salmon fishing. We had heard there was some good fishing up there. This wasn't an easy jaunt up there. It was had to go up by ATV for 2.5 miles, and then hike another three quarters of a mile to get to the location. But we'd heard there was some great fishing up there, and it turned out to be true. So we went up there, got set up on the sweet spot, as it were. We found out that this area here in the rectangle was the sweet spot up there. There was fish jumping, rolling all over the place. Everybody was catching fish. It was really a good day. Now, this is where I learned that no one told me what to do if I land a fish on a fly. I hooked 2, or let's see, I had 2 hit, but when I go to reel, I dropped where I was shredding the line, or stripping line rather, and hit the reel. Well, there was a lot of slack, so the fish came off. So I lost 2 good-sized fish that way. Luckily, somebody saw what was going on, because my uncle Pete was, he was busy catching fish of his own, so he wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. So somebody gave me some spinner rod, and I was able to land 3 other fish on the spinner, one of which did get away. One of the guides up there, when he was trying to bring it in with the net, got out from the net and got away. He swears it was the biggest fish caught that day. I, of course, agree with him. I'm sure it absolutely was. So we had a really good time up there, caught a lot of fish, and I was very excited. So after a great day of fishing, of course, we went back to the lodge for cocktail hour. Here's the room where we usually had our pre-dinner cocktails, usually martinis, sometimes scotch. But we sit up here, it's very comfortable, and you can see some of the carvings there that were done by Big John, again with the chainsaw. And then here is the other side of that room with the stairwell that take us upstairs to where we had dinner, and the upstairs deck. So anyway, after that, I finished off the last day with a stogie, a victory cigar, if you will. I don't usually smoke. I'm not a big smoker or anything like that, but thought it seemed appropriate. So really enjoyed that, and sadly that brought an end to our last full day up there at the lodge, but had a great time. Had caught, obviously some salmon and some halibut, so I was able to come back with some fish to put in the freezer, which my wife also likes, so that was very nice. So the next day, it was time to get ready to head out, get on the airplanes, and get ready to fly out. So we went down to the beach to meet the airplanes, just like we arrived. Going out, though, we had a much smaller group with us than we had coming in, so it only took 2 planes. I didn't get to fly on the Beaver. Again, I got one of these smaller aircraft. You see here, getting ready to take off. And taxiing down the beach and getting ready to so not only did I land on the beach, I took off the beach. There we go. Here we go. You can see out the window as we're taking off. Last look at all the beautiful scenery, the mountains in the background, the trees, rivers, and whatnot. It was just a glorious trip. Hate to see it come to an end. It went by just so fast. All that angst I had about trying to get up there, and the issues with the ceiling and getting the flight back out there was just gone and forgotten by this point. Just it's so amazing. The pictures just don't do it justice. If anybody's been up there, you'll know what I'm talking about. The camera just can't really capture the majesty of what you see and feel when you're there. It's a whole other experience. So from here we flew back the hour and a half back to Anchorage, where my dad, my uncle, and I were to catch our flight. It wasn't nonstop. Apparently they stopped nonstop flights from Atlanta to Anchorage and Anchorage back to Atlanta after Labor Day. So we had to stop in at Seattle and transfer over to another plane there and then fly from Seattle back to Atlanta. But it all went off without a hitch. One of the interesting things I found out was that the Anchorage airport actually has a cold storage facility. So we got there, we still had a couple hours before our flight left, so we checked the fish in at the cold storage. So you keep it there, and about 30 minutes before you leave, you go get it, and you take it to the baggage check-in and check it in, and it gets on the plane, it flies there, and it stayed frozen. By the time I got home and opened up the box that had the fish in it, it was still frozen, which was amazing to me there. So all in all, it was a very good trip. Hated to see it end. We do have the shot of the moon from the airplane as I'm flying back from Seattle and whatnot. So that, guys, it was a great trip. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you thought this was fun. I know it's not traditional Mustang stuff, but I thought you might like it. Look for some more Mustang content, hopefully coming up soon. But with that, folks, I'll see y'all in the next video. Thanks.